Kanban. You've probably heard the term, maybe you even use it. For a lot of people, it's just a board with a bunch of sticky notes on it. But, that's kind of like saying a car is just a metal box with wheels. Today, we're going to pop the hood. From a consultant's perspective, we're going to transform Kanban from that simple tool into a really powerful framework for mastering your workflow. So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll nail the core concept. Then, we'll get into the 4 guiding principles. That's really the why behind it all. After that, we'll cover the 6 core practices, the how. Then, we'll dig into the main tool, the Kanban board itself, and we'll finish up with some expert-level insights on how to avoid the common pitfalls that trip up, well, pretty much most teams. So let's start at the very beginning. What is Kanban, really? At its heart, it's a method for managing and improving how work gets done. You can think of it like a set of traffic signals for your entire workflow. And its roots? They go all the way back to the super efficient Toyota production lines, where it was first developed for their revolutionary just-in-time manufacturing system. The idea of having exactly what you need right when you need it and not a moment sooner. Okay, this next point is absolutely crucial, and it's a distinction that so many people miss. Kanban is a scheduling tool. It is not an inventory tool. It's not about managing a big pile of tasks or materials waiting to be used. It's all about signaling when work or resources are needed to keep things moving in a smooth, continuous flow through your entire process. That's a huge difference. So let's move on to the philosophy that holds this whole system up. You really have to understand these 4 guiding principles, because they are the why behind everything we do in Kanban. This is what separates a team that's just, moving sticky notes around from a team that is truly doing Kanban. Now, what's really interesting here is the theme that connects all of these principles. They don't demand some massive disruptive revolution. Not at all. Instead, they're all about an evolutionary approach to change, something that's way more sustainable and effective in the long run. It's kind of like slowly turning a giant container ship, not trying to do a hairpin turn in a speedboat. This first principle is just about honesty, pure and simple. You have to map your process as it actually is right now, warts and all, not how you wish it was. As a consultant, we call this the as-is process. I mean, think about it. If you create a board that represents some fantasy workflow, it's completely useless from day one. You've got to start with reality. Second, you have to embrace gradual improvement. These big bang overnight changes, they're super risky, they create a ton of resistance, and honestly, they usually fail. Kanban encourages small, incremental, continuous improvements. You might have heard the term Kaizen. This approach lets the team adapt, learn, and actually internalize the changes without getting totally overwhelmed. This third principle, well, it's a great guard against arrogance. It is so tempting to walk in and immediately start changing things that look inefficient from the outside. But Kanban tells us to just pause. First, understand why things are the way they are. Those processes, those roles, even if they seem imperfect, they probably exist for a reason you haven't discovered yet. And finally, this is a huge mindset shift. Real, lasting process improvement can't just be a top-down mandate. It doesn't work. It has to come from the people who are closest to the work every single day. This principle is all about empowering every single person on the team to spot issues and propose solutions. It builds this amazing culture of collective ownership. Okay, so we've got the philosophy down. Let's see how this all builds into the how of actually doing it. With that philosophy in place, we can now look at the 6 core practices that turn these principles into real, tangible actions. This is where the rubber really meets the road. These 6 practices are basically the engine of any good Kanban system. They all work together to take you from just a static picture of your work to a dynamic, living system that you're constantly measuring, managing, and improving. Now, they're all important, but from a consultant's perspective, there's one that I've seen make or break more Kanban setups than any other. And that practice is limiting your work in progress, or WIP. This is, without a doubt, the hardest one for teams to adopt, because it feels so counterintuitive. But trust me, it is the absolute key to the whole thing. Limiting WIP forces you to stop starting new things and start finishing things. It creates incredible focus, and it exposes every single problem in your workflow. For example, just imagine a testing column on your board, and you set a WIP limit of 3. Simple enough. If there are already 3 items being tested, the team is literally forbidden from moving a 4th item in. This creates what we call a pull system. The developers can't just keep pushing more work onto the testers.
They have to actually stop and help clear the bottleneck in testing first. It's a simple rule, but it completely changes the team's dynamics. So, with the principles and practices now established, we can finally turn our attention to the tool you're going to use to bring it all to life, the Kanban board itself. It is the canvas where this entire system plays out visually for everyone to see.
The board's anatomy is actually pretty straightforward. Columns are the stages of your workflow. The cards are the tasks themselves, and they move from left to right as they progress. But that rule at the bottom, tasks should never move backward, that is strict for a very good reason. The board has to be an honest, visual signal of progress. Any backward movement corrupts that signal, and it's a huge red flag that your process isn't as linear as you think it is. And this slide right here is a perfect example of how Kanban can scale across an entire organization. The key is that the level of detail, or what we call granularity on the cards, has to change. So a department-level board might have a huge, high-level task like extend user account. But for an individual developer on that team, their task is way more specific, something like modify user_create code. The board has to match its audience. It's also pretty helpful to remember Kanban's origins and know the difference between two types of cards. The task card is what most of us in knowledge work use. It's got the info you need to complete a job. But the inventory card is the original concept for manufacturing. It's a signal that you need to order an item, and it has details like the supplier and the SKU. Okay, now for the real consultant-level insights. Implementing Kanban looks so easy on the surface, but it is full of challenges. Let's break down the most common mistakes that teams make, and more importantly, how you can see them coming and solve them. Sooner or later, every single team hits this wall. Tasks are just piling up in one column, and work grinds to a halt. The critical thing you have to realize is that Kanban didn't create this bottleneck. It simply made an existing, hidden problem painfully visible. And believe it or not, that's a gift. So how you respond is everything. The common and totally wrong response is to just increase the whip limit to make the pain go away. That's a band-aid, nothing more. The correct, analytical response is treat that bottleneck like a smoke signal. You have to stop and investigate, do a root cause analysis, find the underlying problem, and fix that. And beyond just bottlenecks, be really wary of these other classic errors. Don't just copy-paste another team's board. It won't reflect your reality. Make sure the team that's actually doing the work is the one breaking down the tasks, not their managers. And pay close attention to task size. A great rule of thumb is that one card should represent somewhere between 2 hours and 2 days of work. Why? Well, if a task is too small, you're just creating tons of overhead. And if it's too big, you have no real idea of your progress. So to wrap it all up, Kanban is so much more than just a board. It is an evolutionary management method. It's about visualizing your real work, limiting your work in progress to create intense focus, and managing the flow, all with the ultimate goal of revealing and solving your systemic problems together as a team. And we'll leave you with this question to really think about. Right now, what is the single biggest constraint or bottleneck in your process? Because honestly, identifying that point of friction, that is the first and most important step toward truly improving your flow.